You did not become quiet because you ran out of words. You became quiet because you finally realized words were being used against you. If you have ever been called too sensitive, accused of overthinking, or labeled cold the moment you stopped soothing everyone else, then you already know what this is. It happens in small moments that leave a bruise you cannot explain. A friend asks, "What's wrong with you lately?" When nothing is wrong, except that you are no longer performing comfort for them. A partner calls you distant the first time you do not rush to fix their mood. A coworker says you have changed because you stopped laughing on cue. You did not change into someone worse. You changed into someone harder to control. You walk into a room and you feel what no one says out loud. You notice everything. The silence after a joke, the pause before a compliment, the smile that never reaches the eyes, the way a person's tone flips when they are not getting their way, the way the room tightens when a certain person enters. You catch the micro shifts, you clock the side glances, you hear what is being said and what is being avoided. You can sense the hidden agenda behind concern, the quiet competition inside friendly language. The resentment is disguised as humor. You do not need a confession to know the truth. And that is exactly why people try to make you doubt yourself. They call you dramatic. They call you negative. They act like your clarity is the problem, because it threatens the version of reality that keeps them comfortable. So you learn a dangerous lesson. Speaking does not always create understanding. Sometimes it creates consequences. Sometimes it makes you the target. You name the pattern, and suddenly you are accused of creating it. You point out the lie, and suddenly you are called rude. You express a boundary, and suddenly you are labeled selfish. Little by little, you discover that in certain environments, truth is not welcomed. It is managed, it is edited, it is denied, and if you keep talking, you will spend your life defending your reality to people who benefit from you questioning it. That is why you became quiet, not because you are weak, but because you are awake. Your silence is not emptiness. It is discernment. It is data. It is self-respect. It is the moment you stop donating emotional labor to anyone who feels entitled to it. And here's the question most people never consider. What if your sensitivity was never a softness meant to be exploited, but a precision built to protect you? What if the woman they call cold is not shutting down, but finally seeing clearly? Coldness is what they call it when you stop performing warmth on demand. Inside, there is no ice, there is clarity. Carl Jung had a name for what happens when someone stops living through other people's expectations and begins trusting their inner truth. He called it the awakening of consciousness, the start of individuation, the return to the self beneath the roles. The world stays comfortable when you are agreeable, explainable, and easy to read. But the moment you stop translating yourself for people committed to misunderstanding you, something unsettling happens. They feel exposed. They feel watched. They react to your quiet as if it were an accusation. And that is where this story truly begins, not with anger, not with revenge, but with a woman who no longer negotiates with distortion. Because the most dangerous woman is not the one who fights loudly, it is the one who sees everything and no longer needs anyone to believe her. If you feel too much, you're not broken, you're detecting. Some people call it intuition, like it's a cute little trick, something you can turn on for a party, then turn off at bedtime. But you know better. For you, it was never optional. It's a nervous system that listens before words arrive. It's the part of you that feels a storm forming while everyone else is still admiring the sky. That's why the world misread you. You learned emotional weather before you learned the calendar. In some families, you could tell whether tonight would be safe by the sound of a car door closing, a key in the lock, a sigh that meant trouble. You heard anger hiding inside. "Are you okay?" You felt silence sharpen at the dinner table, and without thinking, you adjusted. You got quieter, kinder, smaller, not because you wanted control, but because your body wanted peace. Then one day, you stopped managing everyone's moods, and suddenly you were difficult, dramatic, cold, not because you changed, because the family lost its emotional translator. In relationships, your sensitivity showed up as early knowing. You felt the shift before the texts got shorter, before the tone turned flat, before affection became routine. You noticed warmth turn performative. You sensed someone being sweet with their mouth while drifting away with their actions. And when you asked a simple question, you got the familiar response. You're paranoid. You're insecure. You're imagining things. Carl Jung would call this the clash between consciousness and denial. When you bring awareness into a space that survives on pretending, your awareness becomes the threat. People don't always fear what you say. They fear what you see. And then there's the workplace, where politeness can be a mask. Where meetings can feel like theater, you notice who flatters the boss, then undermines you inside conversations. You hear the compliment that carries a blade. You feel the tension under just checking in. You sense the control behind "we're a family here." When you stop smiling on cue, they say you have an attitude. When you stop oversharing, they call you guarded. But what they really mean is simpler. They cannot read you anymore, and they cannot use you the way they used to. If you recognize yourself in these scenes, here is the reframe that changes everything. Your sensitivity was never a weakness. It was an inner radar, built through experience, refined through survival. In Jungian terms, what people bury becomes unconscious, and the unconscious does not vanish. It leaks through tone, through timing, through tension, through the body. You are not imagining what you sense. You are perceiving what others have trained themselves not to notice. So here is your permission, especially if you've spent years apologizing for how deeply you feel. Trust the signal. Slow down when your body tightens. Listen when something inside you whispers, "Pay attention." Your inner radar is not there to make you anxious. It's there to keep you honest, safe, and whole. There comes a moment when your voice stops landing, not because you're unclear, because they have already decided not to hear you. You remember how carefully you used to speak. Soft tone, small smile, a little disclaimer. Maybe I'm wrong, but just to keep the room calm. You named what you noticed. You pointed out the shift. You asked the honest question. And instead of clarity, you got consequences. In a family, it might have sounded like, "When you yell like that, it scares me. The kitchen lights are too bright. The air feels tight. A chair scrapes the floor." Then comes the familiar reversal. "After everything I've done for you." Or the easy label. "You're too sensitive." In a marriage, you finally admit, "Why do I feel alone even when we're together?" You hear the long exhale. You feel the cold space on the couch. The response is not a conversation, it's a shutdown, a blame shift, a quiet punishment. At work, you say it plainly. "I noticed my idea was repeated and credited to someone else." The conference room smells like burnt coffee. People stare at their laptops. No one meets your eyes. Then the script drops. You're not a team player. You're making things awkward. You're reading too much into it. Over time, you learn the pattern. In an unconscious system, truth is treated like an attack. So your psyche adapts, the way a wise hand pulls back after touching a hot stove one too many times. You stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop bringing evidence to a courtroom that was never intended to be fair. You realize something that changes everything for a woman with an inner radar. Not every conversation is a bridge. Some are traps, designed to pull you into explaining, defending, proving, until you're exhausted enough to surrender your own perception just to restore peace. This is where silence becomes sacred, not collapse, boundary. You hold your words the way you'd hold a match near a windy curtain. You don't strike it just because someone demands warmth. You wait, you watch, you gather. You let people reveal themselves when they are not being managed by your softness. You let their actions speak without interrupting them with your empathy. And almost naturally, this is where Jung enters the room. Carl Jung would call this the beginning of consciousness, the moment you stop living inside the story that other people project onto you. He understood something many women discover the hard way. When a family or group runs on denial, it needs someone to carry what no one wants to face, a scapegoat, a container, a target. If you are the one who sees clearly, you become the threat. Not because you are cruel, Because your clarity destabilizes the illusion, so they try to punish your voice. They shame you back into the kind of silence that serves them. Submission. But you are learning a different kind of silence now. Sovereignty. You can feel the on-off difference in your body. Your shoulders drop. Your breath returns. Your mind gets quiet in a new way. You do not go quiet out of fear. You go quiet out of precision. You stop leaking your energy into other people's chaos. You stop volunteering as the emotional translator for people who refuse honesty. You gather truth the way you gather your keys in your hand when something feels off. Calm, quiet, ready. Your silence is not the absence of power. It is the place where your power collects. Sometimes the backlash begins the moment you get calmer, not louder, not meaner, just clearer. You start answering with fewer words, you stop over-explaining, you pause before you reply. And suddenly, people who once seemed comfortable around you begin to act strangely unsettled, like your quiet has changed the temperature of the room. You see it in the smallest places first. At a family gathering, you sit at the table, and you do not rush to fill the silence. You chew slowly. You listen. Someone makes a pointed comment disguised as a joke, and you simply look at them with steady eyes. No argument, no nervous laugh. The air shifts. A fork taps too hard against a plate. Someone clears their throat. And then it starts. Why are you being like that? You're so cold lately. What's your problem? Nothing happened on the surface, but something happened underneath. They were used to your old role, the soft buffer, the one who smoothed the edges, the one who absorbed tension. So everyone else could pretend things were fine. Your calm removes their cover. Or think about a workplace moment. You stop volunteering for extra tasks that were never recognized. You stop staying late to rescue a team member who always disappears. You start saying, "I'm not available for that." And you say it without guilt. You can almost feel the eyes on you in the meeting. The polite smiles get tighter. Someone suddenly worries about your attitude. A manager mentions teamwork in a way that sounds like a warning. This is not about the task. This is about control. When you no longer have unlimited access, you expose the system that depends on it. Even friendships can turn sour. You notice how the friend who used to call you for comfort goes quiet when you stop being endlessly available. You do not chase. You do not explain. You do not apologize for having a life. And somehow, your silence becomes a story in their mind. They tell themselves you think you're better. They interpret your boundary as rejection. They say you have changed, as if your growth is an offense. This is the psychological turning point Jung named with brutal precision: projection. The unconscious habit of attacking outside what we refuse to face inside. When you stop reacting, you become a mirror. You reflect back what people would rather not see: their neediness, their manipulation, their entitlement, their unresolved shame. And because they cannot tolerate the discomfort of facing themselves, they assign it to you. They call your calm coldness. They call your discernment judgment. They call your self-control arrogance, not because those words are true, but because they need them to be true to protect their self-image. This is why you can do nothing at all and still provoke. Your presence exposes the emotional games others rely on, the guilt hooks, the pity hooks. The urgency is not real, the drama that keeps everyone spinning. When you step out of that trance, the mask feels threatened. People who live behind a mask feel unsafe around someone who no longer needs one. If you have felt this, you are not imagining it. You are witnessing an ancient dynamic. The group prefers comfort over truth. The family prefers peace over honesty. The workplace prefers obedience over integrity. And when you become the kind of woman who cannot be managed by shame, you become the kind of mirror they do not want to look into. That is why your silence gets misread. Not because you are cruel, but because you are no longer available for the illusion. A strange kind of authority arrives the day you stop managing other people's emotions for them. It does not feel like triumph at first. It feels like standing still while everyone else keeps sprinting. Your mouth stays closed, your shoulders stay down, your pulse stays steady. And that is exactly why the power shifts. Because the moment you withdraw your emotional labor, the old dynamic loses its fuel. The partner who used to throw a mood across the room and wait for you to clean it up suddenly has to sit in it. They sigh louder. They slam a cabinet. They pick a fight over something small, hoping you will take the bait and return to your old job as the emotional regulator. You do not. You let the silence do what it always does. It reveals. Without your soothing, their behavior is no longer disguised as stress or a bad day. It becomes what it is. In family systems, the shift can feel almost theatrical. The moment you stop playing peacemaker, the tension they handed to you has nowhere to go. A parent calls to stir guilt, and you answer with a calm, "I'm not discussing that." A sibling tries to recruit you into gossip, and you simply say, "I'm staying out of it." Then the scripts begin. You are selfish. You think you're better. You've changed. They may even bring in other relatives, turning your boundary into a group conversation you never agreed to join. This is how a system protects itself. Jung would call it the backlash of the unconscious. When a family is organized around denial and roles, any member who steps out of their assigned part threatens the whole play. So the system escalates to pull you back into your character. At work, it shows up when you stop buffering tension between coworkers, stop softening feedback, and stop over-delivering to make everyone comfortable. You send the email that is clear and professional, not padded with apologies. You decline the extra task without offering your life story as justification. And suddenly, you are not as collaborative. People start watching you more closely. They test you with little requests, little emergencies, little last-minute favors to see if the old version of you is still available. Your calm no forces the truth into the open. Who respected you and who only valued your compliance? Here is the secret, and it's the part most women never get taught. You do not have to fight to win. You do not have to prove your point. You simply stop feeding what drains you. Jung understood that when you stop being the container for other people's shadow, they are forced to carry it themselves. Their discomfort is not evidence that you did something wrong. It is evident that the system lost its leverage. And in that space, something almost miraculous happens. Reality gets louder. The mask slips faster. People reveal what they actually believe about you. The relationship either rises into honesty or collapses under the weight of its own manipulation. Your power does not come from winning arguments. It comes from refusing to participate in emotional theater. When you stop reacting, the truth finally has room to speak. At some point, the need to be understood starts to feel like a chain. You recognize how many years you spent translating yourself into a smaller language so other people would not feel threatened by your clarity. You softened your truth. You added apologies you did not owe. You over-explained simple choices. You tried to prove you were kind, even while your body was warning you that kindness was being used as a leash. Then one day, you do something that looks ordinary from the outside but changes everything on the inside. You stop explaining. Not as punishment, not as a performance, as a return. The most dangerous woman is not the loud one. It is the woman who has integrated her perception, her boundaries, and her self-respect into one quiet posture. She does not argue with distortion anymore because she understands what distortion is designed to do. It is designed to pull her back into the old role, the fixer, the translator, the emotional buffer. She does not beg to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding her. She does not chase closure from people who only offer confusion because she has learned the difference between a conversation and a maze. She sees clearly, and she lives accordingly. This is the part that surprises everyone. Her silence is not the silence of fear. It is the silence of completion. It is what happens when you have sat with yourself long enough to know what your body means when it tightens, to know what your intuition means when it whispers, to know what your peace costs, and to refuse to sell it for temporary approval. People call it cold because they cannot feel their old anxiety anymore. They cannot hook you with guilt the way they used to. They cannot distract you with noise, but inside, you are not cold. You are clean. You are clear. You are finally at home in your own skin. In Jung's language, this is individuation in motion. It is the moment you stop living as an extension of other people's unconscious needs and return to your own soul as the final authority. You stop asking the room for permission to be yourself. You stop auditioning for belonging. You stop negotiating with versions of reality that require you to betray your own perception. You begin to measure people by one simple standard. Do I feel more like myself around them or less? And you let that answer guide you without apology. This does not make you unkind. It makes your kindness honest. You can still love deeply without disappearing. You can still listen without absorbing. You can still care without carrying what is not yours. Your boundaries do not block intimacy. They filter it. They invite the right people closer and quietly remove access from the wrong ones. And the world can feel the difference, even if it cannot name it. Some will respect you more. Some will leave. Some will try one last time to provoke a reaction because they missed the version of you that was easy to steer. Let them. Here is the lesson that changes life. Especially in the second half of it, you do not owe anyone a constant explanation to prove you are good. You owe yourself honesty to prove you are free. When you trust your inner radar, you stop living on trial. You stop defending your reality. You start inhabiting it. And there is a quiet power in that, the kind that does not need a speech, because it is written in your posture, your choices, your calm. Your silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the sound of a woman who already knows.
If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.